Hey there, friends. Welcome to freaking Crazy Friday. I've got some really interesting stuff to share with you all. First, guys, go check out my friends over at cmmg.com. These guys walk the walk. They don't just talk the talk whenever it comes to any kind of Second Amendment support. These guys are very active in the community as far as putting their money where their mouth is. Not only that, they make great firearms too. You can get your selection of calibers, Cerakote finishes, different types of action. One of the cool things about it is you also have a feature where you don't have to pay full price now. You can pay in payment plans. This is a pretty cool feature. Allows you to save a little bit of money now, keep some money in your pocket, and pay over the course of time. I recommend taking a look at this if it's something that fits your needs. Go to cmmg.com, use my discount code FTATF. Again, my discount code is FTATF. Receive 10% off your purchase at cmmg.com. Several of you guys out there who watch my videos sent me some information yesterday that was really interesting to me because it's in a technical field that I'm not familiar with. And it was totally eye-opening and really helped answer some questions for me. I'm talking about the Brian Malinowski case where we heard some testimony yesterday. One of the things that was discovered in the testimony was that there was some RF blocking, and I'm using other people's terminology, not my own, RF blocking technology that supposedly was blocking the cell phone usage of Malinowski so he could not receive or make phone calls during the raid where he was shot in the forehead. Well, as luck would have it, several of you out there are tech experts and you understand what happens. And I got emails from many of you and the information was incredible. First of all, I want to explain a little bit about what happened. They did not block his cell phone use. It wasn't RF blocking technology. It's essentially cloning a cell tower to make your phone think that it's talking to a cell tower when you're actually forcing it to talk to what you are using, mimicking a cell tower. The technology was streamlined by Harris and they called it the Stingray. Now this one here is called a Kingfish, but nevertheless it's all in the same vein of the Stingray, where it's a very small portable box, and in most cases this is going to be something that can fit in a suitcase, and law enforcement, including FBI, ATF, all these folks are going to use to capture information and cell phone usage data and to make you think that you are on a tower when in fact you are connected to them. This technology was meant for the military and of course it is being misused stateside, hence the Patriot Act and all the wonderful things that came with that. Now, a Stingray mimics a cell phone tower, which then in turn sends a signal to all nearby cell phones. The phones in the area connect to the Stingray if it is the strongest signal. Now, they don't connect if they want to. They are forced to connect. It's important that you remember that if that is the strongest signal besides the cell phone tower, it will be forced. The phones in that area who are closer to the Stingray will be forced to connect to the Stingray and not a tower. So it's not targeted to any one specific person. While they may be looking for one specific person, everyone close to the Stingray's information is being gathered at that very moment, and they are pinging off of a Stingray, not a tower at that point. This technology can be used to either triangulate or gather data. They can trick phones into sending data without encryption, allowing for surveillance of a phone's network activity and all other information, including text messages, emails, and even audio voice calls on that particular phone. More specifically, a 2018 patent assigned to Octasic claims that Nexcel forces a connection with nearby mobile devices when its signal is stronger than the nearest legitimate cellular tower. Once connected, Nexcel prompts devices to divulge information about its signal strength relative to nearby cell towers. Again, several different agencies have these. More specifically, they are government agencies. They used to require a non-disclosure agreement to be signed whenever they bought a Stingray, a Harris Stingray. And the Harris Stingray is older technology, by the way. But the NDAs are not required anymore. In fact, Harris stopped selling these particular devices to the federal government a couple of years ago and now offer no support. Now you can guarantee that somebody else has stepped in and is filling that void at some point. It's definitely not a technology that's no longer there. It is definitely being used. In fact, the federal government more than likely is the one who developed this information, so they just probably gave the technology to somebody else. Cell site simulator surveillance is what these things do. They trick your phone to thinking that they are the base station or the cell tower. Looking down below of this slide, depending on the type of cell site simulator in use, they can collect the following information: identifying information about the device like international mobile subscriber identity number, metadata about calls like who you are dialing and duration of call, intercept the content of SMS and voice calls, intercept data uses such as websites visited, and this all includes emails as well. Now, personally, I found this extremely interesting. This type of stuff, you know what happens and you know what goes on, but if you have any kind of a little bit of intelligence to understand what they're talking about, it becomes interesting. So I decided to do some digging, because one of the guys who emailed me made the point that if the Stingray device is closer than the cell towers, then it will automatically pull that. And again, like I said earlier, it's going to pull from everybody. So everybody using a cell phone, once that Stingray device is activated, is going to be pulled into that particular fake, if you want to call it that, cell tower, the Stingray. So what I did is I pulled up a map of Malinowski's house. I was curious what cell towers are in the area. And the reason why I asked this, I think all of this has a correlation of where these guys regrouped. You remember they got together on the 12th of March at a parking lot, and I just made the comment that it looked like a Walmart parking lot, and they decided at that point that he wasn't home, so they came back a week later. Well, one of the guys who emailed me said the way they knew that he wasn't home is they got closer to his home, which would have been closer than that cell tower that he probably normally was pinging off of, and at that point they knew that his phone wasn't there. They looked for his identification on that particular phone, and it wasn't available. So they knew. That's why you saw all that effort of all 10 guys, all 10 units, go out there to one location, which seemed kind of weird that he wasn't there. Well, that's when they determined that he wasn't there, because they were looking for his phone, and it wasn't pinging. So they're like, well, the phone's not even in this area. We're not picking it up, so let's leave, and we'll come back whenever we know he's here, and we can ping and pick up that signal. I say all this because I was curious. What were the closer cell towers? And I'm curious how close they were to his house whenever they decided to, first of all, get to not raid him on the 12th, and then on the 19th decide this is the day he dies. So I pulled up a map of the Little Rock area, and I try to get these maps really, really close so you guys can follow along with me. When I pull up the map of his area, and you see I have his address pinged, that 4 Durant's Court, that is his address where he lives just outside of Little Rock. This next map, if you see the numbers on there, you see 430, 630, 30 under the name Little Rock, and then 430 down at the bottom. Those are all cell towers. That's 4 cell towers in plain view. You can see one off to the far right over there as well, but these 4 are the closest ones to Malinowski's house. If you look at the pin mark at the upper left-hand corner, the red mark up there, that's Malinowski's house. So you see the proximity that his home is in relation to these 3 cell towers. Well, guess what? Whenever I look at his house, you see my red arrow right there? That is the local Walmart right down the road from Malinowski's house. Right down the road from his house. We're talking about a quarter of a mile from his house. So I immediately said, I bet that's the location. And if you look again at my 2 maps, as close as that Walmart is to Malinowski's house, the other towers are almost all in Little Rock, which he lives outside Little Rock. So if that Walmart that I show with the red arrow is in fact where they gathered, they're way closer to his house than any of those towers. So automatically the Stingray device that they would have had at that point would certainly have collected all of Malinowski's stuff. Now, let's look at the Walmart. You think I'm a nerd here? I want you guys to see this. I took the liberty of getting some up-close shots of this Walmart parking lot. Cool thing is, it being late at night when these guys were gathering to kill Malinowski, I can see all the markings in the parking lot. This still shot right here of these guys gathering on the 12th. Remember, this is the day that they bailed out on the raid and the shooting of Malinowski in his forehead. This is the day that they decided to abort the mission, right? Look where all the cars are collected. Now, I want you to pay attention to some particular things in this picture. Look at the markings, the stripings, I should say, in the parking lot, as well as the little median dividers that we have here. I locate, if I do the overhead here of Walmart's map view from above, satellite, you notice my green circle to the far right, and then notice my red X's. The red X's are where all the cars would have been parked, and the green circle is kind of like a fingerprint, if you will, of the parking lot. If you'll notice, I circle in green the same little striping, and the stripings are all different in this parking lot, so you can find the right one. And then I actually mark where the cars are. So this is the parking lot. They collected at the Walmart, a block or so from Malinowski's house. That's where they had his phone that did not ping on June the 12th. That's when they determined he wasn't there based on and I say the Harris Stingray device. Those are outdated devices, especially now that we have 5G technology. But we know there's other technology that took its place. I'm using the Stingray as an example because I had the more information on that online. But they're using a more advanced technology. So it's going to be better than what the Harris Stingray was. So I wanted you guys to see that, first of all, I listen to you. When you send me information, I listen. And you guys were dead on. I mean, obviously, they did use some kind of device like this. That's, again, answers a lot of our questions as to why they showed up on the 12th and then bailed out on it and then came back 7 days later to shoot Malinowski in the forehead. So definitely this is interesting information. This is proof that the federal government, ATF, local law enforcement agencies possibly as well, are using these types of devices. And again, not jamming RF signals like the terminology they were using, but actually faking that they are cell towers. And one point that I want to make that's very interesting, when these guys are under oath like Dettelbach was, if you notice, they are very careful about asking a question, making the congressperson or senator who's ever asking them a question to be very clear in what they're asking. And they're asking for a reason. Because if Jim Jordan were to ask Dettelbach, are you using in the ATF RF blocking technology? Dettelbach can, under oath, rightfully and correctly respond, no, we are not. Because this is not RF blocking technology. Remember, that is the terminology that they were using leading up to this. Words mean things, and you guys know we talk about it all the time, semantics, semantics. People are twisting and turning their meanings of words. But when you're under oath, they're very careful about that. So Dettelbach can, without lying like he normally does, say we don't use RF blocking technology. RF blocking is more what we're used to hearing because they have the RFID blocking technology for wallets and things like that. So that sounds like the right terminology to use, but in fact it is the wrong terminology to use. I was using it incorrectly. I was using the terminology they were using because I wasn't familiar with the technical aspects of what this is involved. And you guys educated me, and thank you so much. I really appreciate that. This was very eye-opening to me. Again, it harkens back to the Patriot Act. Again, that's a perfect example that both parties are in it together. That came from the Bush administration. So we are obviously being surveilled. My point to a lot of this is that we know we're all being surveilled. What about all the people, when they were running this Harris-type Stingray technology to fake Malinowski's phone into believing he was talking to a cell tower? When they were doing that, they were getting all the information they needed. One of my viewers made the comment that whenever they show up with a search warrant, they know exactly what they're searching for because they know you have it. Why? Because this technology has already shown them everything you have. So they're not wondering if you have it, they're wondering where you have it hidden at because they already know that you have it. The other thing is, while they were extracting all of this information from Malinowski's phone and anything else, because they can do this with Wi-Fi as well, so they could be doing this with his home computer, they were also gathering the same information, whether they wanted to or not, from his neighbors. You don't think out of curiosity they pulled up his neighbors and just to see, I wonder if Malinowski talks to his neighbors about guns. People on the street that might be driving around, pulling all their information. The hundreds and maybe hundreds of thousands of people in the Little Rock area that might have been visiting, get this, the Walmart, because they could very easily remember the proximity of that that Stingray versus the towers is all that matters. So that's very likely they were very comfortable going to this Walmart parking lot. They may have been staked out in this Walmart parking lot. Just drive up and listen to and look at all of Malinowski's information. So think about how many people use a Walmart, especially in a city like a Little Rock, right? A lot of people. So a lot of people who were using this Walmart all had their information taken. Somebody, NSA or somebody, is all storing this information, and they have all of these people's information. Pictures, conversations, everything, correspondence of any kind using a cell phone. Real quick note here, and this is probably going to piss you off. How do they pay for this technology and how much does it cost? It usually costs upwards to $500,000 and a little bit higher than that. The upgrades are even higher, as you see right here. This talks about an upgrade being over $600,000 when the initial system cost about $500,000. But guess who pays for it? You do. I do. It would be paid for through a U.S. Treasury fund derived from assets seized by the federal government and a 2018 high-intensity drug trafficking area grant. Seized assets are what pays for this. Whenever they make a bust, they take your stuff, they sell it off, and that's how they're paying for more technology to further spy on you. They have their reason, right? Terrorist. For using this technology via the Patriot Act, and they're gathering everybody else's, and oh, that's just like collateral damage. We didn't mean to get all of Paul's information. He just happened to be in with all the information that we were gathering when we were staking out Malinowski. That's scary to me, guys. They have a reason, not a legitimate one, but a reason to gather all your information, all your data, and they don't have an obligation to get rid of it. They don't have, they could very easily be saying, well, this is everybody in this zip code or this area code. If we ever need to go dip into it, we've got it.
God save the Queen, man.
I'm sorry, I thought this was a